But if you see my face, I'm actually right on the verge of giggling. I don't know why I was gonna giggle here. That's weird. But I just let you know that's what's actually going on behind the scenes. What's going on, everyone? Good to see you. Glad to be with you. So we finished up this mock admin interview, and some things went really well. Some things didn't go super great. So what are we doing today? Today, I want to kind of give you my opinion on how I did and what I would have done better in this interview. Some of you, if you saw the video, you know that I'm not an admin. I'm actually come from the developer space. And then in the middle of the interview, the guy I was interviewing with, Salesforce Chef, is my friend. He decides to start making the questions harder and harder and harder. We kind of had this like pre-arrangement. I was going to be a junior admin, kind of like joining his company, that sort of feel. He started kicking it up higher and higher and higher. And so a little bit of this interview was me kind of like, trying to pretend I was a junior admin, but some of it was just me like not really knowing. There's still a bit of separation between the developer and admin space. I do believe to be a good developer, you need to be a great admin. So I do believe that, hands down. That's just, the more you know that. That's why like some of the best developers I've really like studied, gotten their admin stuff, and yeah. Okay, so this is the beauty of kind of recording yourself and getting to see it firsthand. You get to really experience and you get to see it from the other person's point of view. So I love this. So this is just going to be me. I'm cutting down the admin interview to a bunch of like really small clips, and then and then I'm going to just really hopefully give you a good framework on how it would be better if you were to answer these things. I'm also going to talk a little bit about things like remote interview tips, how to present yourself, just some of those different things. So if that's something that hopefully is helpful to you guys, then I hope you would like and subscribe to this video. That's exactly what this channel is about, helping people in technology get their first jobs or their next jobs, and that's kind of what we're here for. So do that right now, because I promise you're going to enjoy this video. All right, without further ado, let's jump into straight away to some of these first, the first thing that I saw. All right.
So can you tell me about yourself, please?
Yeah. So, well, I'm, still getting used to kind of the Salesforce space. I'm a little bit newer. I come from a bit of a business background, and my local business just started using Salesforce, and it's been a fun career. I found out about being a Salesforce admin, and then I've just been kind of doing Trailhead and kind of getting to know the Salesforce space. I got to volunteer for a local nonprofit which helps veterans find care and find housing and things like that. And so when I heard that there was a job for that helped work with the government, and I was like, man, that'd be such a great place to work. So I'm really excited for the opportunity. And yeah. It's interesting because I feel like I'm okay. I'm pretty comfortable on camera. Like I don't really mind it. Like I've been in front of people for a long time, and I find it so funny. I thought in my head, I was like presenting like a happy version of me. Like I'm just having a great time. I'm smiling, I looked like I was sick to my stomach, which made me laugh because I thought that I just that's not what was going on in my head. So like really realizing like I wasn't actually expressing my emotion. I'm just gonna have this like, when people smile and it doesn't like reach their eyes, and that's not something you really have to worry about, but I wouldn't say the average person should worry about, but at the same time, like you want to make sure that how you come across, like your body language, like all the things that are going on there, like is actually really positive, right? Like you want people to be like, oh, I want to work with this person. So keep that in mind. All right, so now let's talk about our first question. All right. I just love my face. I just keep looking at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why did I do that? Why did I not like smile? So the first question, generally, like in an interview, when you're going down this rabbit hole, is So tell me about yourself, right? And that's kind of where we jump off here. I answered that okay. That wasn't so bad, right? There's a few things I like to keep in mind when I'm kind of answering this question, when I'm thinking through, tell me about yourself, because it can go so broad. I've seen people take this and tell entire stories about themselves. They're like, oh, well, you're in for it now. They're like, when I was 3 years old, I blah blah. And you're like, oh, that's too much. There's also I think you can give too little information here, because the way I think about like interviewing is everything that you do in your interview is to answer the question that the interviewer has. Why should I hire you? Why should I bring you on my team, right? So this is a great opportunity. Introduce yourself. Talk about how passionate you are. Talk about like how you see yourself being a great fit for this. Those are all things that I think are major wins. Like, for example, in here I talk about how my past experience volunteering, right? It was going to be a great fit for this role. And because I got to work with veterans, now I worked with the government, doing things like that I think are really important. So tailoring your past experiences are really good to kind of make them fit in with this role that you're interviewing for. I like to keep it pretty professional. I do like to smile, have a good time, have a laugh. So try to keep this low stakes. Try to push your nerves down a little bit and just kind of answer. Be really kind of conversational with this. Another thing I like to tell people is, hey, they're asking about where you came from. You can bring a little bit of your history into this. Make sure you keep it positive, because I've been on the other side as an interviewer. What I don't want is to bring a grumbler, like someone who's going to cause a lot of drama and issues and complain about like my coworkers, my current company. Like, if I want to bring you onto my team, I want to know you're going to be positive, right? Like, you're going to bring a good vibe like to our team. So keep it positive with that, and don't be so focused on trying to all the dirt from your last company. Like, instead, just make a great first impression, keep it positive, and also show a little bit of passion when you're kind of answering this. All right, let's move on.
Let's talk about some Salesforce admin questions.
Okay, sure.
What's the difference between lookup and a master detail relationship?
Yeah. So a lookup relationship would be a lookup relationship is a relationship between two objects, and specifically, it would connect two objects. So maybe if you had two custom objects, you would link them together by this lookup relationship. And so the lookup would the field would contain the ID of the related object or the related record. And yeah, that's how those connect. And then a master detail relationship is almost the same thing, except for it's a little more specific. A master detail relationship is where, in order for there to actually be a detail, there has to be a master relationship where so they're more closely tied. It's like a parent-child relationship. And the child cannot exist without the parent, where a lookup relationship, they can exist just fine without each other.
Good. That's one difference. What's another difference?
The one difference being that they can exist and not exist? Is that what you're saying?
That's one difference. Yes. That's
okay.
That's child cannot exist without a parent.
Right.
There's another important difference between master detail and lookup relationship. Anything ring your bell?
Yeah, I think there was. I'm remembering something along the lines of how you're able to do counting and
Yes. And what's the field? What's the type of field that does the counting?
Is it a roll-up field, a roll-up summary field, or a roll-up field?
Good.
Yeah, so you can do a roll-up field with master detail, but you can't do it with.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So thank you. Yeah, thanks for the hint there. I just forgot.
And third one, then there's another difference around security.
Okay, is it? I think I remember there being something along the lines of, as well. If you have access to the master relationship, then you have access to the child. If you have parent, then you have access to the child. But in lookup relationships, that's not true. There, you don't have access to both.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The master detail relationship. If you have access to the master object, you automatically get access to the child records. Good.
All right. So now he jumps kind of straight into some technical questions, and this is where we'll just kind of see how things go. Right? You know, when you go into an interview, preparation is what is really key for you. I will spend a ton of time researching companies, researching common interview questions. I'll use sites like Glassdoor to figure out what does the company usually ask people, and so this was a question that I normally would have studied for, because relationships are very important in Salesforce, especially like when you're in the back end and your company's asking you to do something. You want to know what's the best way for me to actually make this thing happen. So one of the things that you'll see me doing in these videos is really stopping and thinking and kind of saying, I'm remembering something like, you know, and kind of heading down that path. You can try that, see how that works out for you. Or if you just don't know, you can say, you know, I think that's kind of all I really remember for that. You know, and then you can talk about why that is. What I like to do is not only answer a question, but also just give a practical example. So what you'll see me do, or what you saw me do, was talk about, you know, if you have two custom objects, you can link them together, and that link, the way that you would do that would be a lookup from one object to another object, like helping them to understand what it is that you're trying to convey by creating a picture or by creating an example that they can really follow. Sometimes you know the answer and you say the answer and the interviewer doesn't quite understand what you're trying to convey. So that's why a lot of times I like to use actual examples, or I'll even tell a story. Oh yeah, well, we had this time where, you know, every single person that we had a master detail relationship. The veteran had a funding. The veteran was a contact, and then underneath the contact, we had a master detail relationship lookup to the funding object, which I just totally made up. But the point is using a real life example like that really helps people understand, or using stories really helps people understand what it is you're trying to convey. So I think that was really good.
Can you tell me, please, what's the difference between a report and the report type?
I haven't messed a lot with reports.
Okay.
So,
that's fine.
From what I remember, I remember learning a little bit about that. But a report type would be the report is the actual report itself, right? Where
yes, exactly.
It's actually what gets shown, and then the report types. You can have many different report types that show different information on the report. Is that correct?
Very close. Very close.
Okay.
To create a report, you got to use a template.
So that's absolutely true. I really have like barely any. I don't think I've ever done anything with reports in my entire Salesforce career. I started off as a dev, and that's kind of my whole thing. So I was being really honest with him here. If you don't have a lot of experience in one aspect of Salesforce, it's totally okay, because Salesforce is massive. Like, there's so many things. Plus, they're like acquiring new companies like every other week, right? So if you have, you know, if you don't have specific experience with one aspect of Salesforce, that's fine. Like, that's cool. Like, that's fine. Just what you should do is just do what I did here. So I said, hey, you know, I haven't messed a lot with reports. But what I do know, or what I remember, you know, so it's like, you're not leaving it with an I don't know. They know that, like, okay, so this person has a general idea of what this section is, but they just don't have an expertise in this area. And so, yeah. Also, I would, if I was looking at the job posting and this job posting had mentioned making reports, then I for sure as heck would have made sure that I have studied making reports and a little bit more about reports. You know, we didn't know any of the questions. He just made them up or found them online right on the fly. So there was no preparation really for this. But you have a bit of a chance to seeing what's on the job description and seeing how you can actually prepare
Great,
for that.
great. What is a profile?
So the dreaded profile, permissions, roles, all that stuff, question for admins. I don't know about you, but for me, this was kind of always a confusing section for me because it took me a while to get my head wrapped around like what each thing was and what it did and how it affected. Um, yeah, so I think I did a pretty good job answering this. But if you're going for an admin role, make sure you research this question. This question is very important for admins. This is one of the main things you'll spend your time doing, giving or restricting access to permission sets, profiles, all that kind of stuff. Someone leaves the company, someone gets a promotion in the company, they're going to need different access to different things or restrict their access to different things. So this is very important in your admin kind of job set. So check out how I answer this. Yeah, so profiles are a little different. I know that profiles, roles, and permission sets all kind of play an important role in users, and so I did get to mess with this a little bit. A profile is sort of what you initially assign a user when they log on to Salesforce. They are assigned a profile, and this profile contains certain a grouping of permission sets that or a grouping of permissions that helps people access the correct objects and things like that. So
good. So a profile can give you access to what kind of things? Can you list me at least 3?
Yeah, a profile can give you access to Apex classes. Profile can give you access to objects, and a profile can give you access to fields and record types.
Good, exactly. Yeah, you can also give access to tabs, Visual Force pages, and maybe also you can set login hours, login IP range. Cool. What's the difference between a profile and the permission set?
Well, each user can only be assigned a single profile, and but can be assigned multiple permission sets. And so that was kind of an interesting thing that happened. One of our users needed. I kept trying to change profiles for our users, and I figured out how permission sets, how they work together. And so that was when I first started early on, but now I think I have a better understanding. You can assign multiple permission sets to multiple users, and each of those things can give the correct amount of access that each one needs to each object or field. Or
so how do you know when to use profile and when to use a permission set?
Well, I think profiles are more set when users are first coming into the system. You kind of initially set their level of access, and then a permission set would be maybe you've created a new object that only one of the things that we did was we created a new object that only the managers should be able to mess around with and create and update records for. And so what we had to do was we created a permission set, and then we gave that permission set access to the new object and fields and everything that we needed it to. And then we gave that permission set to each of the managers. And so a permission set can be used to group together a large amount of kind of permissions, I guess, and give them to each user as much as you need to. Oh, excuse me. Put that on silent. I'm sorry about that.
Good. In your admin internship, have you dealt with sharing settings by any chance?
So once again, here you just hear me being honest. I really haven't messed a ton with sharing settings, on the admin side of things, and so I just want to just giving him kind of an honest answer. No, I have not really messed with sharing settings. And then he asked me, well, do you have any idea what they are? Oh, that's a different question. And so, I do my best to kind of explain sharing settings. I think I did an okay job answering. I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding too. with what I was saying. Yeah, so do your homework with when it comes to sharing settings, and you'll be fine. So sharing settings are also very important, depending on how much separation the company you're working for wants to really have between their users. So yeah, so check it
By
out.
any chance,
No, not really.
do you have any idea what are sharing settings?
I think sharing settings. I haven't actually messed with them. I remember it when I was doing some of my earlier learning. That sharing settings were more for um, connecting, basically allowing access to certain types of maybe an opportunity, for example. There could be a, I think I think the kind of the classic example would be, someone's leaving on vacation or for an extended period of time, and they need to um, I guess this is an example of how a sharing setting would stop this from happening. But if they're leaving for an extended period of time and they needed to transfer that to someone, we'd have to make sure that they share that opportunity with the other person. So sharing settings would limit the amount of, if I remember correctly, sharing settings would limit the amount of sharing that happens and who can see whose records, if that makes sense.
Okay. This was a long explanation. Is there any way you can answer this concisely? What are sharing settings?
Yeah, I haven't messed with sharing settings very
fine.
much, but that's just from what I remember.
That's fine. Okay. Basically, sharing settings control the level of access you have to records that you don't own. So you might have access to a certain object, like account object, but if sharing some settings are private, that means you only have access to your own account records. But if it's public read, you have access to read other people's account records. So that's what sharing settings controls. Cool. When you're working as a Salesforce admin, there's a lot of times you don't know something. For example, due to lack of experience, for example, about sharing settings. What do you do in that kind of situation if there's something you don't know, but you're trying to resolve?
Right. So another great question here. What do you do when you're stuck? Basically, is what he's asking here. This is something that I learned from one of my from my coding bootcamp, and basically the framework for me, and this is what I tell people. I'll work on a problem for 20 minutes. If I can't figure it out for 20 minutes, then I'll move on. Now, in everyday day-to-day life, that doesn't actually happen. Sometimes there's things you really need to research. Sometimes there's things you really need to dive deep on, and 20 minutes isn't reasonable. But it's good. It's good for the interviewer to know, like, oh, this person has something that they can do, something that, like, a system that they do for getting stuck. And especially if you're more junior, this might be something just to have in your back pocket, just to, in case you get asked something like this, so they can figure out, what are you going to do when you come with, when you have a question. Because one of the main fears that like people who are more senior have of more junior people is, am I going to have enough time to walk this person through all their problems, plus like doing my work, like and doing the double work that is, right? And so it's good for them to hear, oh, this person actually tries, because if you've ever been around someone who doesn't do anything for themselves, and they just ask someone all the time, maybe you have kids and they're like, where's my shoes, or where's my jacket, and you're like, did you look? Those people aren't people that you really want on your team. And so it's good to know that, oh, this person really actually studies things, will dive deep on a subject before they actually come find me and bug me and mess with me and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a great framework. I probably talked way too long on that, but just see how I answer. Right. Well, I think first of all, that's why I'm excited to kind of work with people with a little more experience, that I can continue to learn from and continue to grow my career. And what I like to do is I kind of like to work at a problem for about 20 minutes. And if I hit the 20-minute mark, and by working at it is trying new things, asking new people, I then would see if any of my any of the people around have ever heard of this or dealt with this issue before. because I want to make sure, I want to make sure to get things through in a timely manner. So I kind of set a time limit. As far as, so asking is on my list. There are a few websites that I've found helpful. Over my time searching again, Salesforce has this like forum thing that you can kind of go to, and people have answered questions on that before. There's another one's like Stack Exchange, I think, is another one. So I think though, I've seen some websites and things like that, as well as I am subscribed to different blogs where I'm constantly trying to learn myself, where I'm trying to preemptively learn things before they happen.
Okay, and who's your favorite Salesforce blogger?
All right, let me pause this one more time. I know we just paused for a second. So I don't know if you could tell this, but I thought I was so smooth because I say Salesforce chef here, but if you see my face, I'm actually right on the verge of giggling. I don't know why I was gonna giggle here. That's weird. But I just let you know that's what was actually going on behind the scenes. So anyways, but it is semi-common to be asked about what resources, how are you staying up to date? Make sure you mention things like, the release notes that Salesforce releases. That's huge. Some of that stuff, which I actually didn't do. I actually didn't do that here, but make sure you mention like, hey, I actually follow what Salesforce themselves say about their own product. Just a quick tip for you.
Okay.
Salesforce chef is I find him on YouTube. He kind of has some helpful admin stuff, and that's actually how I helped. And you saw some of his information for this interview. Also, Salesforce Ben is another one. I know that that blog has been around for a long time, and it deals with new upcoming changes and things like that. That's been helpful.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, I also like to follow good Salesforce bloggers, including Salesforce Ben, Admin Hero, and see what the release notes are, the shorter version from Reddit, and I think it's very important that you follow these thought leaders in the Salesforce space. Cool.
Yeah, I've learned a ton from all these people that are putting out. There's so many cool blog posts, and it's kind of surprising how many things you can learn if you spend the time.
Yep. And when you were learning Salesforce, what do you find is the most difficult thing for you?
I think one of the things that is really difficult for me is writing formula fields. That took me a really long time to understand, and even now, I still find it a little bit difficult to do very complicated formula fields. I usually try to use flows as much as I can. I understand that much easier, but if I have to, I can do it. But I'm still really learning how to use formula fields.
If you're trying to build a formula but you cannot, what do you do?
Well, I've actually done that a lot, and so usually I will do a search for something like it. So maybe if I need to, when the account phone number changes, the contact phone number should change, something like that, then I would go on the internet and I would do a search for how to change a contact phone number with account phone number or something like that, and then and usually there's enough information there for me to kind of gather and at least try to understand what's going on. And then once again, at the nonprofit, there was someone there who had worked with Salesforce before, so I was able to really ask questions, and so that was helpful to me.
Cool.
All right, so right now he just asked me in Salesforce, what's the most difficult thing that you do? Like, what's the hardest thing in Salesforce? So this kind of falls in the same kind of lines as that question that's like, what are your biggest weaknesses? What are your biggest flaws? Some of those questions that interviewers like to ask you. I try and be honest about this question. But you don't need to be so honest that you actually scare them away from giving you a job, okay? So I'm just being real. Like and you're gonna see me say like, hey, I talk about formula fields here. Formula fields are legit hard, and especially any of you guys have never messed around with them. So, think through these things. This is why it's important to prepare for your interviews. You need to really think through these things. What are you going to say when they ask you what are your biggest weaknesses? What are you going to say? What are your biggest flaws? Like where are you going to go with this? And really put yourself in that kind of mindset there. So I just wanted to say that it's important to do that. My thing is, the way I kind of get through these is I'll be honest with things, but I try not to overshare, right? All the things that I'm terrible at. If oversharing or even being too negative on yourself just makes people on the other side, on the human aspect at least, be like, oh, he's oh, there's a little negative, like, or something like that. So anyways, yeah, so share, but don't overshare, okay? Pre-think up some of these answers. You don't want to pre-think up like doozies or deal breakers. You're like, what's one thing that you find really difficult? You're like, oh, well, everything's really difficult in Salesforce. And then usually I just end up on Reddit and like on YouTube, and you don't want to bring something up that's a deal breaker. You understand? So so that's just a few things to think there.
Let's say you're a system administrator at a small firm, and there's a certain app that is in Salesforce, and you want to restrict the sales team's access to this app. Let's say it's an app that shows the profitability of the company, an app that can show the company's income statement, salaries. So you want to restrict the sales team from accessing this app. How would you prevent the sales team from accessing this app?
Okay, I think my initial thought would be to check the profile and permissions to see to see if either of those, which one of those is granting access to that app, and after finding the correct one, I would probably then just restrict the permissions there and not give them any kind of access to the objects or the fields or just anything that has to do with that app.
Good.
Or the app itself.
Yep, precisely.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Precisely. So let's say you work, you're trying to create, create a report on a certain object, and you know that you created a certain custom field on that object, but you cannot add it to the report. Why do you think this could be the case? Just once again, because we were doing a lot of setup for the company, I didn't do a lot of stuff with reporting. It was more in the initial setup. But my initial thoughts around that would be something like making sure that they have access to that field through field level security, making sure that once again, back to your profile and permissions, and making sure that either of those that they have the correct access for that. But also there is access to that field. Okay. So if the field level security lets it, then I'd probably, to be honest with you, I don't know. I think I could tell you what I would do if I needed to do that, but please.
I think what I would do is I would spend some time, just looking around for, and maybe doing a search online for why I can't, why a custom field is not showing up in a report. And then I would see what other users have said are their issues, and then see if either of those cases match my current situation. So that's kind of what I would do. So sorry about that.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's say you do the Google search, you use the keywords, but there are no results answering the question. What would you do?
Usually, like I said, I do like to be self-sufficient and try to solve it myself, because I've learned that when I learn how to do that myself, I always remember how to do it in the future. But I also think that at that point in time, I try to pull on some of the team members that have done this before, and after I've spent some time on it, about 20 minutes or so. That's sort of my kind of time frame.
Good. Good. One thing I would have done though before pulling in a team member is posing the question on a Salesforce admin forum, for example, Reddit or the Salesforce admin blog, Salesforce admin website itself, so that members of the community could advise you.
That's true.
All right.
Yeah.
So he just asked me two situations, right? The first one I think I did really good with. I nailed that. I hit that out of the park. If I need to restrict things or give access to things, profiles, permissions, roles, like those are the kind of areas that you want to go. That's how it goes in my mind, at least. Then he asked me about reports. Now, reports are honestly a weakness of mine, and I don't. I just, like I said, I've never even messed around with reporting. I obviously wasn't giving him the answer that he wanted. So I'm not sure if you actually saw what I did there. But what I did was I was like, to be honest with you, I don't know. But I can tell you what I would do. When I don't know something, I like to say something along the lines of, I don't know that. I can tell you how I would figure it out though. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, so, because if you think about it, like in their mind, at least in my mind, you have this kind of arm, right? Like, and in this arm, like you're passing the interview, like every good question answered, everything that you do well is like passing this person in the interview. Everything that you do bad is actually like taking away points, right? And so in my mind, when you say, I don't know, that all that does is it either leaves the needle here straight ahead, or it actually just kind of puts a more negative slant. Oh, they don't know anything. Oh, they don't know how to do this job. Like all those things. So what that does is, instead of them leaving that experience, that question with like a negative, that negative experience, actually what the way I feel it actually will turn out is that is it actually gives them a bit of a positive experience when they're like, oh, okay, this person like knows how to handle stuff. This person knows that you're not going to know everything. They know they have a system in place of what to do. Now, I actually still didn't give him the answer that he was looking for in that, and so that still might have been a bit of a negative experience for him, but that's okay, because I think that he knows that I'm willing to try, and I know that this interview has gone decently well for a junior admin. This is also the time he starts asking me more difficult questions. This is pretty much the last question here that he asked me that's pretty difficult. And maybe it's not difficult for you people that have done this, for some admins that have been in the game for a long time. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about that. So when you don't know something, feel free to give more information other than I don't know. Like, feel free to say something along the lines of, I don't know, but I can tell you how I'd find out. Like, give that a shot. See if that helps your interview chances.
And last technical question. There is a share button, right? Have you seen this button on records? There is a button that allows you to share the record with other people.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this button by any chance? Share
button. I've seen it. Yeah, but I don't.
Yeah. Do you know what it does?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's fine. All right, then I'll skip this question. Do you have any questions for me, Joshua?
Right. So this question comes up a lot, right? Like, do you have any questions for me? This is usually, now the problem with this question too sometimes is I feel like you've been in like a 45-minute interview. The interviewer's like spent, has an hour time, and you only have like 4 minutes to come up with questions that to kind of ask back. Always have a list of questions that you want to ask the company. And what I do is I'll have my own little notepad kind of pulled up, and what I'll do is I have the most important questions that I need to ask first. But you know what I've done actually that I think kind of causes people a little bit of like, oh, okay, like to kind of think about me, and it might be a little bold for some of you to do, but I've actually asked people, they're like, yeah, do you have any questions for me? I'll ask them my questions, and then at the end of it, I'll say something along the lines of like, yeah. So, just my final question would be, as I'm trying to grow in my interview experience, do you have any feedback for me for how I interviewed? Like, do you feel like I came across genuine? Do you feel like I knew what I was talking about? Is there anything I could have done to do better? This is a great question, because if you've tanked and you're asking for honest feedback, you've opened yourself up for honest feedback. Some of this might hurt what you're about to hear. It could be bad, but it could also be really well, right? It could also go really well. You could tell it can, first of all, it gets rid of some of that dread of, did I make it? Are they going to call me back? And I've had people keep it pretty vague. They're like, oh no, I think you did fine. Like, and you're like, fine, fine. Is that good fine? Is that bad fine? All those kind of questions go through your head. I've had other people tell me like really positive things where they're like, actually, I think you handled yourself really well. You knew a lot of the things that we asked you. You seem to be up to date with, the latest technologies and the latest way of doing things. I think you're a strong candidate. Like, and I'm like, okay, well, awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much. Like, if there's anything you think of that I can improve on, I'd love to really work on that. So it just kind of shows people, hey, this person's hungry. This person's willing to work hard. And plus, it honestly will benefit you. If you've tanked, if you've done badly, they're like, yeah, I think you could do really well on your technical skills. I think technically, I think you did really well on this portion of it, but I think on this portion you didn't do so well. So I've done that for some of my stuff, and that seemed to go really well for me. So I'm going to continue to do that if when I am ready to hop back in the job search again. All right, man. So that was kind of the overview of how I thought I did on my interview. I know there was probably a ton of things that I missed in this, and some things that you would point out. I'd love to hear some of those things in the description, and in the comments. Like, just write a comment below. Let us know. Let me know what some other things that you think would have been really helpful and can really help people land their first jobs. By the way, speaking of landing your first jobs, I have created a checklist of my favorite places to apply for jobs, whether they're junior dev jobs, remote jobs, and even some secret job places that no one I know talks about. And honestly, the more places that you know to apply for are better chances for you to get your application in first or into a smaller pool of candidates. So that's why I created that. I think it's going to be helpful to you. You can find that at tech-ology.co. There's a link in the description for that. And also, you get to stay a part of our newsletter and all the fun things that we're doing there. There's going to be a ton more to come from this channel. And once again, this channel is all about helping you get your first or next tech job. So if that's something that interests you, then you found the right place for you. Like and subscribe. We're looking to get our subscribers up and really just kind of create a community. So if that's something that interests you, great. Like, subscribe, and other than that, you guys have a great rest of the day.